Friction is a force that often acts in the opposite direction of an object's motion. It it acts, let me restate that. Friction acts in the opposite direction of an object's motion when the object is moving, but friction is still present when an object is sitting still. Friction is what keeps it sitting still, in fact. That's called static friction. Here we see a braking car, and the kinetic energy of this braking car is transformed into which types of non-mechanical energy? We need to think about that. Well, it has the car before the driver hits the brakes has kinetic energy, and the driver wants to stop, so he or she wants to remove that kinetic energy, and you can't destroy energy, you can only get it to change forms. So by hitting the brakes, you create a state of friction. With standard brakes, you create friction where the friction slows down the car and the brakes heat up. So it's transformed into internal energy, which, as we saw in the last video, is a form of non-mechanical energy. So when that friction slows down the car loses kinetic energy, and we have mechanical energy, which changes into non-mechanical energy, internal energy. Friction occurs whenever objects rub against each other, whether it's a bird flying through the air and the bird rubs against the air, or a car tire rolling over the road. In each case, friction resists the movement of the moving object. Friction varies depending on the materials involved. A very smooth or wet surface tends to have less friction than a rough or dry surface. This is why your car engine is full of oil. It lubricates the parts and helps. They're very smooth parts, and they're covered with oil, so they can move against each other, rub against each other with a minimum amount of friction, and that way we have a minimal loss of mechanical energy. Think about running your finger across a mirror compared to running it across sandpaper. It's going to move much more smoothly against the mirror than against sandpaper. Mirrors are very smooth. Also, the harder two objects press together, the greater the friction. We know this as normal force. Okay, if something is resting on a surface, the more force that surface is exerting back up on it, the greater the force of friction is going to be. Think scientists recognize two types of friction. There's static friction. Friction is what keeps an object at rest, and kinetic friction is the force that slows down a moving object. In both cases, friction is a force. Sometimes static friction will keep an object at rest. Static friction keeps an object at rest. Kinetic friction slows down a moving object. So it's a force that acts against the direction of motion. When friction resists the motion of an object, it lowers the object's mechanical energy. So in this braking car, some of the car's mechanical energy is converted not only into internal energy, it's converted into thermal energy, sound, light, maybe. In this way, the car's velocity is lowered, but the energy of the system and its environment is conserved, as energy is always conserved.